Hey, my name is David. In the last 90 days, I've scaled my automation agency from zero to just over 10K. I've moved out of my mom's dinky little room, and I am proof that AI automations do sell. In this video, I'm going to go over the three things that I've learned, and hopefully they can get you inspired to get started right away. And this is also going to be a testament to like consistency for myself, kind of like hold myself accountable. If you look back at my other videos, you can see I haven't really posted in the last 4 months. And the reason why was because I had this realization that I'm in no position to really be giving any sort of like advice or insight. And so I spent the last 4 months really locking in and setting this foundation for my agency. And now I have, it's like 11,600 per month from monthly retainers. And I'm also going to be showing you guys some acquisition channels that I use, some proof. I'm going to share like my profile. Um, but yeah, hopefully I can be more consistent this time around and take you along with me on this journey as I try to scale to 50K a month. So anyway, let's get into it. Um, yeah, the three biggest things that I've learned in these last 90 days is well, the first one being going to market, like having speed and gaining experience. There's really nothing that beats experience. And I'm sure you hear it all the time, especially in a like uh, especially in a time where social media is flooded with AI gurus at the moment. But when it comes to going to market, the reasons why you want to just get your first client immediately, obviously to make money, but there's three things that are more valuable than that. So if anything, you should probably get your first client like for free. But the number one is you're going to learn your market value. I remember the first client that I ever got was, ironically enough, the VP of a Fortune 500 company. But the project that he hired me for was like some side project for his daughter. It was actually they were doing something incredible. They were trying to stop strokes or detect strokes before they even happened. But they had hired me to do an outreach system for like surgeons. So I was scraping data on surgeons, like specific kinds of surgeons, and I easily I put more than at least like 30 hours of work into this, and I only got paid $200. And that's because I charged them $200. But I didn't have the experience to understand the scope of the work. But the experience that I gained was priceless. And so that's number one. You're going to learn the market value. So after you get your first client, you'll understand what to charge on the next one. You'll get a better idea on the next one. And essentially, the way pricing works is you want to charge the most that the client can afford to pay within reason. So like if you're making them money, then you can charge, a percentage of that or a fraction of that. Um, but that's number one. You're going to gain market value or learn market value. Number two is you're going to gain confidence. And I think that goes without saying, but I want to emphasize that because at least in my niche, like right now, I focus on B2B SaaS companies. The people that I work with or my ICP, they're not like they're very bright people and they're founders. They have experience in tech, and long story short, they can smell the BS rather quickly. So being confident doesn't mean like lying or faking it till you make it. It means that you either have experience in the past completing a similar project, or you know that you're competent enough to do something new, but that you'll succeed. So the more experience that you get, the quicker that you go to market, the more experience that you get. The more experience that you get, the more confident you become, and then the more confident you become, the more money that you can charge, and the better experience that the client has. So that's number two is you gain confidence. That's number two of point one. So 1.2. And then number three of point one is what did I write down? Oh, social proof. Yeah. And I think this is the most valuable thing out of this whole like point one of going to market is you're gonna gain social proof. So if the project that you were hired for is successful, and it should be, whether that's like in my case, like a growth system. So I'm generating revenue. I can take that and I can use that as social proof or a case study for my website, my next client, my Upwork profile, my cold email pitch. And it reduces the friction of which it reduces the friction of someone's like perception of me because they can see that I've done this before in the past. And if it aligns with what they're looking for, it might be a better fit. And so when you have that social proof, um, it just makes things a lot easier, especially if you have like two, three, four, five case studies. People say it all the time, and it's true. Although not everything people say is true, but I will admit that the hardest part is always that first client, and it's always that first 0 to 10K. I'm booking calls a lot more now because I have a few case studies in my back pocket that fit with certain industries. So I think at that point it's just like scaling. But anyway, social proof, case studies. That's point three of insight one, 1.3. So anyway, that's going on to insight number two is communication. And communication is a big one because um, as soon as you land a client, and I'm going to go over the acquisition channels in a second, but as soon as you land a client, you want to make sure that they have a good experience. And even if you deliver the project, whether that's like some sort of operations, like process automation operation or something, or it's a growth system, whatever it is, like you want them to feel like you're actually servicing them. Um, Kind of like how someone would feel in a fine dining environment versus like a 2-star street vendor restaurant or something. Like you want to give them that white glove service. And so it really is as easy as giving them daily updates with line items and yeah, just keeping them like making sure you're top of mind. You don't want to bug them obviously, but just updates letting them know that you're actually servicing them. Um, I think that goes a long way. And that's something that I learned the hard way. Just because yeah. So, because imagine if you pair inexperience or like the perception of inexperience, like someone perceives you as being inexperienced with a lack of communication, it just doesn't look good. Like they're gonna box you in, as like, okay, this person can only do this one thing, and they probably don't even do it that well because they're inexperienced. But I think that communication is big because yeah, you can probably get somebody to like you, and even if you're inexperienced, because they like you, though, they'd be willing to, have this idea that you can learn. It's not the ideal relationship you want to have, but I'm just putting that out there. So no, that's insight number two is communication, and another one that falls into that is the willingness to look stupid. You have to be willing to look stupid. Um, and I've looked stupid so many times, but that's the only way that you are going to learn and um, honestly like get solve the problem of whatever comes up. You have to look stupid. So I'll give you an example. And this happened like last week. I onboarded a new client and I gave them a kickoff document that instructs someone on their team to sign up to certain subscriptions, like software subscriptions. And excuse me. And one of the instructions, I instructed them to pay for subscription, and in some steps, I instructed them to just attach their payment, like their card. And because of this, I noticed that some of the software that they had signed up to, they all had their payment method on it, but some of them they didn't sign up, like they didn't actively activate the membership. And so I ran into this one step of me setting up the infrastructure that required me to have some credits. And because I because I'm so, speed focused or like getting things done as fast as possible focused, Rather than checking if they had already purchased, I had just assumed that this person didn't purchase any plan and I went ahead and purchased it on their behalf. Probably not the best thing, but anyway, long story short, they had already spent $200 on X amount of credits, and then I billed them another $200. Um, and I immediately communicated with them that I did that, and I apologized, and I tried to solve it as soon as possible. So, well, I guess what I'm trying to say here is communication is like obviously if a problem comes up, you want to try to fix it as soon as possible, and even give some solutions if you can. But in my case, this client was going to receive some sort of receipt or some sort of billing and like notification. And even if they weren't, like even if I knew that they wouldn't see it, like you want to be transparent. You obviously you want to be um, have some sort of goodwill. So anyway, I looked stupid. I told them, and apologized, and you move on. And the same thing sort of goes for any sort of obstacles that you come across where you might need help. Like reach out for help. Like maybe if you need some sort of clarification on the client's ICP, or you need some sort of clarification on like what they do or what they're offering, like ask questions. Be competent first. Try to figure it out yourself first, always, but ask questions if you need to, even if you think you're going to look stupid. Because then the worst case is you just learn, really. Okay, moving on to our last insight number three is daily ROI tasks. So daily tasks that bring in revenue first, like that is number one, non-negotiable, is doing something that actively drives revenue or begins the cycle of generating revenue. And that is probably like the number one thing. I think I said like the last three things were the number one thing. But anyway, yeah, so the first thing that you do is like a task that drives revenue before you even do fulfillment. So, and this is where I'm also going to go over some acquisition channels. So what that looks like for a beginner, at least in my case, was submitting daily Upwork applications. So submitting anywhere from 6 to 10 Upwork applications per day. Send the whole Loom video, yeah, copy paste my pitch, and so on and so forth. Um, some other methods were cold outreach, like cold calling. I remember I used to cold call, and cold email as well. If you don't have a lot of money to start, you could just scrape for, or not scrape, but you can do research and like get 10 cold email or 10 addresses to cold email a day from your personal account if you need to. There's really no rules to this. Like it's really like when it comes to generating revenue, it's really just starting conversations. That's what it is. I think one of my first clients when I had a marketing agency, like the way that I acquired this client was I had cold called this company. It was a service company. I had cold called them and I tried to cold DM them on Instagram. No answer, and no DM. Like they didn't respond to my DM. A week later, and this was in my hometown. This is like a local service company. I see somebody with that company shirt on. And so I walked up to him and I asked him like, what's up? And he was like, oh, what's up? Are you looking for a job? And I said, no, I'm not looking for a job, but I tried reaching out to you guys and no one got back to me. Like, what's up? And he's like, oh, here, let me give you the number of so and so. And so was the decision maker. And fast forward 3 weeks, 3 to like 5 weeks from there, because I remember I had to call them and follow up. This was a general contracting company. Um, they ended up being one of my first big clients. When I mean big, I mean like at the time for me it was big. It was like $3,000 up front and then $500 a month. And they're still with me to this day. So anyway, it's about driving conversations. Like obviously that the practical channels are cold email, cold DM, like Upwork, that sort of thing. But in the story that I just told you, even though it wasn't like a practical channel of like going up to somebody in person, like it was still the same thing. It's driving a conversation, right? And that's what led me to make that connection. So that is, yeah, that is number three is daily ROI tasks, like before fulfillment. Before fulfillment, do something that generates revenue first every single day. because there will always be some sort of latency between the outcome. But if you just put those things into motion, you will eventually get to that outcome. Anyway, I hope you guys found this valuable. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.